Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudy J and I am here with Cheryl Phipps.
Hi there.
Shah Barrett.
Hello.
And Wendy Vella.
Hello.
And this week we have an amazing guest, as always. Aren't all our guests amazing? But this one is particularly amazing. We have Tamsin Ley. Yay!
Hey!
How do you pronounce your surname? Ley?
Ley. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, good.
Ley lines.
Ley lines.
Ley lines. Oh, cool.
Oh, don't get us started.
Awesome. So now that we've completely confused everyone, I'm going to pass over to Wendy, and Wendy's going to do a quick bio to introduce Tamsin to all of you, and then we will get started.
Absolutely excellent. Tamsin Ley builds worlds full of sexy heroes who don't know they need a mate. That is, until they meet the woman they can't resist. The romance is sizzling hot, a surprise twist waits around every corner, and the stories will never leave you hanging, although you may crave more. Wine lover, beer-brewer, foodie, and serious gardener, and secret zombie prepper, Tamsin lives in Alaska with her husband of 20-something years. In the long days of summer, you can find her in the great outdoors. But when the long winter nights set in, she'll be at the keyboard creating imaginary worlds. Welcome, Tamsin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming along to join us in the crazy world of the spa. So can we just talk a little bit about your journey into publishing, and particularly self-publishing? If you just come and talk about your writing journey to start us off.
Oh. Did you miss that?
I did. My earbud fell out.
Okay. I'll start again then.
Tell us about your journey.
Tell us about your writing journey. Tell us how you got into self-publishing and writing.
Oh, thanks. Well, I've enjoyed writing ever since I can remember. But, and I started out, I think, as many authors do, trying to go the traditional route. So you write the manuscript, and these were the old days. I had to mail it in, the thick packets and whatever. and so my first indie published book was actually under my other pen name, Tam Lindsay, and that was a apocalyptic sci-fi romance. But it was two agents were requesting fulls, were reading it, were loving it, and were saying that it was too much science for romance readers and too much kissing, basically, for sci-fi readers. And so they said, we love it, but we don't know where we would shelve it. So it was rejected. It was just rejected. And they said, well, if you do publish it and you get any traction, let us know. I'm like, well, by the time I get traction, why would I need you?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I went ahead and I delved into figuring out how to publish it myself. Luckily, I'm an avid learner, and I started devouring books about story structure and going to writers' conferences, and I figured out how to publish it myself. I hired an editor. I put together a cover. I did it myself, which I don't recommend now because I look back. I still do my own covers. Like, all my covers are my own, but looking back at my original very terrible covers, that's not the way to go. Spend the money, right? Yeah. And so I put it up on every platform that I could possibly do at the time. This was back in 2012. And I didn't know anything about marketing was the problem. I was still in the mindset of, like, you publish it and then readers find it and you make money. Yay. I didn't realize, I just didn't know. I didn't publish the next book in the series for a year, more than a year. I think it was a year and a half. And then the third book I didn't publish for another year. I had a newsletter because I knew you were supposed to have a newsletter, but I didn't nurture those readers. I didn't know how to. I'm like, I should only email them when I have a new release. Well, hello, a year and a half later, they don't remember who I am. So I didn't know anything about publishing. I even got a BookBub deal on that first book.
Wow.
Which, yay, you're so excited. Yeah. I was like, I knew that was a big deal. I got a BookBub. It did great. And then it quickly petered out because I did not know what I was doing with it. I didn't even know about, like, putting back matter in and leading readers to the next book. It just didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I tried a couple of Amazon ads. I lost a bunch of money. And then by the time my husband made me sit down and pencil out my numbers, I realized I hadn't even made back my editing fees yet, let alone the cost of the BookBub or all that stuff. And I was pretty heartbroken. Pretty heartbroken, right?
Yeah.
So I was working a dead-end job. I was really unhappy. It was a day job. But like I said, I'm an avid learner. So I continued reading. I kind of started studying the market a bit. And I read a book by S.K. Quinn called For Love or Money. And it was an epiphany. It taught me to open my eyes and look at my writing, which was a passion. You know, it is a passion and it's an art, but it needs to be, you need to look at it as a business. And that was the part that I didn't have. I was just like, if you write it, they will come. And that's not what happens.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and I wrote a business plan. I studied the market. And, you know, I made sure I considered, this was 2017 when I finally got this pulled together, and I put together a calendar for my releases so that I was not waiting a year and a half in between releases. I knew I was going to try a rapid release thing because that was the big thing then. So I said, well, I'm going to make sure I've got 3 books written before I publish so that I can make sure there's only, you know, like 4 weeks in between publications. That did well for me. So I published The Merman's Kiss in 2017, early 2017. I had written a reader magnet for my newsletter, which was another thing that I had learned about gathering those readers, and went ahead and put that up, started gathering my readers, rapid released every month, those 3 books. I had a budget. I had budgeted myself. My husband was very happy about that. Did money for advertising and for, you know, the book covers and for, you know, all of the things that go into that rather than just throwing money at it willy-nilly. And then all of the money that I did make off of those books, I put right back into my budget to increase my marketing and all of that. So I didn't make any money that first year because it was all literally going right back into the business. Luckily, I was working a day job and I had money for that. And this I did it under a new pen name, Tamsin Ley, rather than Tam Lindsay, because I switched genres after studying the market. That whole too much science for romance readers and too much romance for sci-fi readers. While I could find readers if I worked hard enough, it was going to be a lot easier if I just focused on the romance part. So I just decided to do that. And honestly, when I wrote The Merman's Kiss, I was actually aiming for the erotica genre because it was a matter of seeing, let's see if I can do it. Can I make a really steamy hot book? Can I write this? Can I? So I challenged myself and I did it. And it turned out fun. I can't get the world building out of my blood though, like that sci-fi, the speculative fiction part of me. So there's a whole lot of world building in that book, even with all the kissing scenes.
Yeah. Do you have a scientific background, or is it just you like?
I like science. So when I went to college, I was originally going to be a biomedical engineer. That was my plan. And, you know, I won scholarships and I went to Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory and I did all this. And I kind of realized that this was late 80s, early 90s. A lot of those people that went into that field were like sleeping in their labs and they didn't have a life. They were so concentrated on that. And I'm a very well-rounded person. I like being a well-rounded person. And I just realized at that point that was not for me. I wanted to be able to do other things. And so I just transformed my love of science into, now I still read like scientific papers for fun, but it's just for research, right? It is. It's just for research. Oh, I better study jellyfish because I'm writing about mermen, you know, like it's fun. So
Cool.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's my scientific background. Is I was on track for biomedical engineering, and then partway through my university years, I went, you know what, I'm going to major in English. So I got a Bachelor of Science in English, but you know, whatever. It all works.
That's hilarious. And so what did you do once the 3 mermaid or merman books were out? How did that work?
Yeah, you know, so that went pretty well. And I'm not a terribly social person. I'm terrible at social media, but I did have, it was actually Amanda Milo. She reached out to me on Facebook and said, hey, I've got this group of writers that are, you know, writing these fun romances. Would you like to join us? And I said, well, okay. So I joined in, and I'm wonderful, amazing, fabulous ladies. I found my tribe, right?
That's so
and
cool.
It's so important to find your tribe. And so we've all kind of learned from each other, and we, publish together, and we pimp each other's books, which is wonderful too, that whole the newsletter swapping and helping post on social media. And so that was what I did. And the books the key to it is to really keep writing. I'm not a fast writer. I don't write a book a month and just release it like some writers are able to do. I'm very envious of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm lucky if I can put out 3 or maybe 4 short novels a year, because I write short. I write like 40 or 50,000 word novels, which I do get complaints about, but I really make all my words count in them. So I don't just write big and fluffy and then go, that's good. All of my stuff's super condensed. So you're still getting a lot of really rich world building in it, but it's on a shorter book.
And that speaks to having the well-rounded life, doesn't it? If you were trying to get a book out a month, you would have no life, really.
Correct. Yeah.
You may as well have gone and been a bioengineer.
Exactly.
Is that the right terminology? Bioengineer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so,
so it was a matter of finding the tribe. So just, just keep writing and keep publishing and keep trying new things. That's kind of what I did. And it just keeps, as your backlist grows, then your career grows. So
How many books have you got out now, Tamsin?
Top of my head, I want to say 18 if I count my other pen name.
Yeah. Wow, cool.
Yeah. And so, you can just make sure in the back of each book, you lead readers to the next book that you would like them to read.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
And so was kind of the stories that you're telling, was that just a natural progression from the love of science, do you think? Like how did you pick where you were gonna, the genre that you were gonna be in?
So yeah, it was partially my love of science and just of reading in general. When my preferred reading is science fiction and fantasy. I just love that. And so The Merman's Kiss was how you just get an idea. I'm like, how about merman? So I wrote a merman, and it was really fun. And the only thing I do regret was that I didn't. Those first 3 books I released, yes, they're in a series, the Mates for Monsters series, and I thought that they're all standalones, and what ties them together is the fact that they're all like mythology romances, right? Contemporary mythology. So it's these mythological heroes that are set in contemporary times. But that's not really a series. It's a bunch of standalones that kind of have a common theme. And so leading readers who really love mermen to read the next book, which was a centaur, a centaur shapeshifter, wasn't as natural as it could have been. So it was a lesson learned, right?
Or was that the second book in the series or the next book after the first 3?
Nope, that was the second book in the series.
Book. Oh, okay, is the centaur.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The second one I wrote. I have since, I think I've renumbered them now. That's a cool thing about indie publishing too, is you can change things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I've renumbered them. So I think that one is now book 4.
Okay.
because I do have 2 other The Merman's Quest is book 2, and A Mermaid's Heart is book 3 now.
Yeah.
And those are, they're all family members, and they lead one to another.
Yeah,
more.
That makes, I was thinking, because I was looking up on your Amazon page and thinking, I didn't remember that centaur being the second one, but yay for self-publishing where you can change things when you discover it doesn't work. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I even wrote a new new epilogue for the second book, A Merman's Quest, to help kind of lead into book 3 a little bit more. Like traditional publishing, you couldn't do that. You couldn't just add on another 5,000 words, right? Say, hey, I need a better ending for this, and fix it. So
yeah. And has that helped, the changing, the adding on that epilogue?
Oh yes. Because I took Sky Warren's Facebook ads class last summer, and that was when I first made the Merman's Kiss perma-free. So I learned a lot, doing that, and kind of took a look at renumbering that series. That's when I did that. So it was all the mermaid and merman books together up front. And I realized she had talked about read through, and I realized at that point that they weren't leading to each other very naturally. So that's when I went ahead and I wrote a new, better ending that kind of leads. It still doesn't tie as well as it could if I had actually planned it as a series, but it's a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nice. That's an awesome lesson of adaptability and just kind of continuing to tweak, if you like, the product, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, she made me realize, like, so yes, I'd had thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads, right? So I'm like thinking, oh, everybody's already read this book. You know, I can't change it now but that's not true. There are millions and millions of readers out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, so when I do something like that, I just send out my newsletter. I say, hey, I made this change. Do you want to see what it is? And then I use, like, I'll either put it directly in the newsletter if it's short, or if it's a longer bit, I'll just put it up on BookFunnel and I'll say, here's a link. You guys can go read this new prologue because you've already read the book. Go read the new prologue. So it's no big deal. It's really no big deal.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? We get tied up into what we think is, you know, it has to be set in a certain way, and actually it doesn't. Yeah, that's awesome.
And that whole thing, you know, you think everyone's read it. It's so true. I'm the same. I'm like, I've had a book out for 5 years or whatever, and I'm like, oh, well, I can't do anything with that book, you know, because everyone's read it. There are so many people out there.
And people growing up, and people deciding they like the genre now, and people, you know, like it's always, you've always got new readers that can be looking at your book.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Can we go back to perma-free? So you talked about how after doing Sky's course, you changed the first book to perma-free. So what's the reasoning behind that, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, well, so prior to that, the Merman's Kiss had been selling really well. So it was a very nervous move for me. Because to be frank, I did lose money at first. And some of it was because I had not optimized the back matter, I hadn't optimized the read through. So that was part of that learning process. But the theory is that on a series you put out a perma-free because readers don't know who you are, and they're willing to go ahead and take a chance on something if it was free. It can be a little tricky because you've got people that just download free and then never read it, and it sits on their Kindle. Which that's, you know, but you take that chance. I from Sky's course, I work with my numbers and make sure that any advertising and stuff that I'm doing to it is, you know, turning me a profit. It's not a huge profit. It would be better if I had a bigger series. Or if, like, book 2 is even shorter than the other ones. Book 2, A Merman's Quest, was actually what I originally used as a reader magnet. It was short. It was like 15,000 words when I used it as a reader magnet.
Okay.
And I went ahead and published it, added on that new epilogue of 5,000 words or so. So it's shorter than the other books. So I do sell it at 99 cents, which you make no money at 99 cents. 30 cents. I can throw that away. That's nothing. Right? However, it is kind of good because people have gotten the free one, and then they're like, oh, well, the next one's only 99 cents. You betcha. So they'll throw 99 cents at it. By then they're like in it.
So
they go to the third one very easily, right? So I think I've got it's a 70% read through to the next one, considering that it's not a series that actually has an overarching storyline. I think that's pretty good.
That's really good. So what's your third one priced at, Tamsin?
The third one is $2.99. And once again, it is because I write short. I think it's like that one is a 45,000 word novella.
And then it moves on from the mermaids to the centaurs. Is that right? So how do you deal with that switch of mythical beast? Is that a big leap for people? You talked about that before, didn't you?
It can be. Yeah, it can be. So at the end of all my books, I put in a reader letter, and I think it was Brian Meek's course that I learned that in. I take a lot of courses. I'm a junkie when it comes to learning. So
you're in great company.
I think I was in the same Sky Warren course as you, and I've also done.
So anyway, so I make sure I put a short 1-paragraph reader letter at the end of every one, and I just say, you know, that's it for the Mer lovers. Are you interested in another mythological hero? Try my centaur. And so, you know, I'm not sure exactly what the read through is at that. I haven't looked at that in a long time, because it is a pretty big jump. People that like the mermaids and stuff, they're pretty dedicated to the.
I was going to say they would be, wouldn't they? Those sort of fans are quite dedicated to what they like, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the same with, like, you know, other shifters. You think there's people who only read bear shifters and they won't switch to wolves, and you know, it's an interesting kind of dynamic where you only love that one type of shifter. It's fascinating. So is that your best-selling series? Because I noticed you've also got your sci-fi romance, and I'm curious to know how well those ones do in comparison. Are they?
So those did really well for me when I was releasing them. In 2019, I let myself get waylaid by doing collaborations. So I did not. Yep, I did not write anymore in either one of my series, my sci-fi or my romance.
Okay.
Series. Yeah, and while a collaboration's a great opportunity for that cross-pollination of audiences and stuff, I think it was a mistake. I definitely shouldn't have done so many collaborations in a row to the detriment of releasing new stuff of my own. And so the Galactic Pirate Bride sci-fi one has languished a bit, but it gives me a baseline for how it does when I do absolutely nothing with it. That's how I look at it right now. I have a really solid baseline. So when I do release a new one and have ads running and like all of this thing, I'll have a really good idea of how well my efforts are working.
I have to say, I was looking you up this morning and I read the blurb for, I think it must have been the first one in that series, and I thought, oh, this sounds great, and I one-clicked it. So go you for having a great blurb. So do you write them yourself, or you...
Do I write them myself?
Yeah, the blurbs. I'm not the books.
Oh,
the
yes.
blurbs.
Oh, the blurbs. Yes.
Sorry. I assume that you write the books. Yeah.
Yeah, I write the blurbs myself. And those are another thing that can be tweaked.
Yeah.
You know, over time and evolve. So.
Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So when you write a book, how long does it actually take you to write a book?
I am a plotter, so I do need to like figure out my storyline ahead of time. And that, you know, I need to allow myself, I deliberate a lot. So I have to give myself downtime to kind of just let my brain think things over. And that can take 2 weeks easily when I'm actually focusing on it. Once I have the plot down, then writing time, it takes me, I like to give myself at least 60 days. To make sure that I can get it done. And then I do have a critique group that I have belonged to for almost a decade now. And I like to put it through their reading because they're fabulous. I don't know what I would do without them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So your plotting process is just in your head, or do you actually get it down on paper as well?
I do put it down on paper. I have a beat sheet of my own that I've developed after reading many other types of story structure, and I have one that works for me. So,
and what's your editing process?
So I actually edit as I go, which I know they tell you don't do. They tell you just sit down and write it, but that doesn't work for me. I like to go back and I reread like what I wrote yesterday. I'll read it today. I make changes. I tweak it. I will put like 2 chapters a week through my critique group. They give me the feedback on it, and I have to go and make those changes before I can really move on, because I work very linearly. And unfortunately, oftentimes that well laid out plot that I started out with, 85% of the time changes. So I end up kind of pantsing through a part of the middle of it, then sitting down, rethinking it, replotting it, figuring out exactly how it's going to work, and coming up with really awesome ending that I hadn't thought of until I had written that far. It has a twist or has a whatever, and then I'm happy with it. But by the time I do reach where I've written the end, it goes through that last chapter goes through my critique group, and then I'm done. It's ready for the editor.
Wow,
okay. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's just, there's so many different ways to do it, and that's a great way. When I finish the book, I have to then go through the editing process. So you're just cutting yourself out from having to do that. So it doesn't. Yeah, that's awesome. Just whatever works, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it is whatever works.
Yeah. And you guys are finished with those questions, aren't you? Because I want to go back to read through. I want to go back to the marketing questions. So you talked about how you you optimized your book. So you had you put it to perma-free, and then you figured out how to optimize. So can you just talk through some of the things you did? Like you wrote the epilogue, did you, on the second book? But is there anything else that you did? The reader newsletter that you read?
The reader's note, the reader letter at the end was a big one, because I used to have like a little thing at the end that said, find me on Facebook, join my newsletter, buy my next book. It had all of these choices. Yeah. And so what I did was I cut out the choices. I said, listen, here we are, you've read the free one. I do have a free deleted scene that I offer from the free one, but I don't tell them about it until after so the very first thing I put is, do you want to find out what happened to the hero's brother, to Xantu's brother? Click here, click the cover. And so that's what people tend to do. And then on the next page, if they do go that far and turn the next page, then they get the whole, hey, join my newsletter and you'll get a free deleted scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at this point, I've got 9,000 people on my mailing list. I know I could build it way bigger, but at this point, I would rather that they just went ahead and read the next book. They will find me and a way to get to my newsletter once they've decided to become a real fan by reading not just my books.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And is there another? There's the Galactic Pirates and the Merman series. Are they your two main series? Is there another one that I haven't?
Those are my two main series. I did a collaboration with some other sci-fi authors for Cargals of Duras, but I only have one book in that, Sticks and Stones. And then I have another collaboration that I'm doing with two of my Alaskan author friends called Alaska Alphas. Cool. And there are 7 books in that series right now. So that was my latest release, which was a seal shifter.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So another problem that I have is that you said people only read werewolves or they only read bears. And I like variety. I like different ones. I like to break out of the mold. I'm like, oh, wolf, no, let's do a seal. It's a hard sell. It's like, I don't have a built-in audience. What do you do? But I have to balance passion for my writing along with
absolutely
the market. So
I hear that a lot from writers. Actually, they just can't keep going in that same direction. They need to diversify and move. Me being one of them, but I know exactly what you mean.
I'm always Wendy had Shah bullying her for a long time, where she would have written a lot of different
bullying.
It's finding that balance. It is. Get at least a few. Put at least a few.
That's what she said to me.
Easy reads.
Yeah. It wasn't bullying. I apologize, Shah. Wise words.
So talk to us about your marketing. What is your main marketing? Is it Facebook or advertising?
I'm terrible at Facebook. I run ads. That seems to work best for me. I did start a Facebook group last year after taking Sky's course, and everybody's like, oh, you just have to have a group. I am not good at nurturing Facebook followers. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I nurture my newsletter people. I love my newsletter people. I get the fans email me back when I send a newsletter. They email me back all the time, and I have one-on-one conversations. I love that. But for some reason, I can't do Facebook group very well. So I have one. I try to post now and again, but it feels, I don't know. I don't like talking just for the sake of talking. And that's what social media feels like to me. So I'm okay with the way that it is. They can find me there. It is a place I can post. It's fine. I focus on my newsletter. My newsletter is a big one. They're my biggest fans. I have a great ARC team, 120 some people that I use that help me get the word out and leave me reviews and all of that. But primarily I run ads. I run Facebook ads, Amazon ads, and BookBub ads. The main one right now running is Facebook for the perma-free one, because it's it's easy to give away something free, and clicks on that. And I think I've got some Amazon ads running it, and it's like $3 a day. I end up spending on those or something, not a lot.
Yeah. Okay. And so do you do Facebook ads for newsletter signups, or you just leave the newsletter signups to? Yeah. So how do you get people onto your newsletter? What's your main?
So I have a Facebook page from which I run my ads. There are links to my Facebook page and everything in the if people continue on through to the end of my book. There's find me on my website and on my all of that. So I think that people just tend to find me there. I do have, like I said, there's at the end of several of my books, I offer bonus materials. So like I said, I do direct them to buy the next book. That's the main call to action. But when you turn the page, you'll get, so at the end of the Merman's Quest, the merman's kiss, I offer a free deleted scene.
Yeah.
At the end of A Mermaid's Heart, there's a bonus epilogue where you get to find out what happened to her pet mantis shrimp. You know,
of course,
who got a mate of his own, right? So it's a whole other chapter. Right? He got a cute little mate of his own, right? You know, so like I'm like, fine, get this bonus, sign up for my newsletter, get this bonus epilogue.
Yeah.
And there's several of my books I will have like a bonus epilogue. For the Ginn's Desire, it's a bonus prologue, and it's a prologue that when I first published it, it wasn't working because it was set too far. The feeling of it was a historical. And it's a contemporary book, but it was like, because he's so old, it was set way back. So I pulled it out and I said, listen, if you want to read the bonus prologue, find out where he came from. You can get it, read it here. So that's how I get a lot of my newsletter signups, is people are interested in more of the world that they've already been reading.
Yeah.
And at the end, I offer them a tiny taste of that. And then they sign up for my newsletter.
Awesome. That's great. And how do you nurture them? How often are you sending the emails, and what do you talk about?
Well, so the main thing is to make sure that you set up an automation sequence so that once they get in, so you've delivered whatever it is that you said you were going to give them. You need to follow up within a couple of days and say, hey, did you get it? And, I actually get a surprising number of responses to that say, yeah, I did, thanks. I'm like, oh, great. So then I can just open up that dialogue and respond back. I'm super glad you did. And then, I send one after that, like a week, that says, what do you like to do? And I introduce myself. And that's where they get the little personal me in my garden, doing my, the things that I love to do. And I try to nurture them right from the get-go, so that they're getting a newsletter from me like once a week at least for a month, 6 weeks, continuing to keep up on that. After they've gone through that sequence, they go into my main list. And for my main list, I average probably 10 days between newsletters, which is a weird number. But once a week is a little bit too often for me. And every 2 weeks is a little far between sometimes. So, it's like 3 newsletters a month is what I shoot for.
Okay. How do you keep track of that? Do you just put it on the date that you're going to do it? Or I
just have a little calendar reminder that says, hey, you should be sending a newsletter right about now. And sometimes, so I shoot for once a week, but oftentimes it'll get pushed off 3 or 4 days. And at that point I know, I'll just skip the next reminder and then I'll hit the one after that. Unless I've got a release happening. And then it's like, I might email you once every 5 days, a couple times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There.
So what do you talk about when you haven't got a release in your newsletter, Tamsin?
So there's lots of things to talk about. Either, what I'm working on. So I'll give them a little teaser, or something in my life, like what I'm doing. And I usually try to turn that and tie it into one of my books and just say, just reminded me of this and this. And so to remind them, hey, if you haven't read through my backlist, here's one you might have missed, kind of thing. And then every week, unless I have every newsletter, unless it's a new release newsletter for myself, I include other authors, like if they've got a sale or a new release for themselves. And so they do the same for me when I have a release. So lots of newsletter swapping.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Awesome.
Wow.
Is there a particular thing that they respond to really well? Like, have you noticed that you get a massive, either an uptick in sales or replying to your emails if you do particular things? Like showing.
Contests are always good, of course. They like to win paperbacks. So I get tons and tons on that. So any type of contest, you get lots and lots. And I make them respond to me. Like, they have to actually manually send me an email that says something, answers a question.
Do you reply to those?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which can be very time consuming.
Yeah.
Like,
I've tried to do that.
Emails back, but I have, but don't tell my readers, but there's a canned response that I'll write. It's like when you know that 80% of them are going to respond in a way that you can just use this standard thing, that's a copy paste, and it's super easy to just respond to them that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good.
It's a personal touch and it's a nurturing, and that's the way that I like to do my audience.
Yeah.
Everybody does it differently.
That's exactly.
Well, I think the key there is that you found what works for you, both creatively and kind of that's obviously what you're good at. So it makes sense to do more of what you're good at. Maybe Facebook groups are for another author that, you know, and I think it's not just the author, or it's not just you, but it's also the readers of that particular, of your books. Some of them are more Facebook friendly, if you like, than others. You know, I've noticed that as I work with different authors, different subgenres have it's a different type of readership, and so it's not even about necessarily the author not being great at a Facebook group or not feeling it. It's a two-way street. You know? So you've got to have people on the other side of the fence that are kind of happy to put their hand across and shake it as well.
That's a good point. So if we're talking about your newsletter again, where do you have it? Like, who's the provider for your newsletter? And
I use MailerLite. I think a lot of authors are using it these days because it's kind of after MailChimp changed all of their terms, it became untenable to use that one anymore. So yeah, I use MailerLite. It works very well for me. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Good to know. And so do you have any other ways of interacting with your readers, or is your newsletter the main way that you do that?
My newsletter is pretty much the main way of doing that.
Yeah.
I do. So like I said, I found my tribe on Facebook. So I do belong to a group of other authors. And, you know, so Facebook parties are kind of a big thing too. But I haven't hosted one of my own because I don't really have that big of a group, and it's just not a natural thing for me, right? But I do go on and to support other authors' releases and stuff. I will go attend a Facebook party with them and do the giveaways and the games and, you know, stuff like that. So I know I find other readers that way as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah. If you could think of one thing to tell yourself when you very first started, what would it be? Like what you know, like something you've learned that's a real must do for a newbie starting out.
Write in a series.
I knew you were going to say that.
So we all tell each other.
Just standalones with a common theme is really not a series. I hadn't thought that one through. That's my biggest thing, and to make sure that, you know, you include that note at the end that leads directly to the next book, or to what you want the reader to do. Make it super easy for them, because when you give a reader multiple choices, oftentimes they end up choosing none of them. So just give them the one choice.
Are all your books a similar heat level, or are they sort of move around?
No, they're pretty similar. The Merman's Kiss, like I said, I was kind of shooting for erotica with that one. It's really pretty heavy on the steaminess of it. I think that there's like 6 sex scenes in that tiny short book, which is like, wow, they're just like, every time you turn around, they're doing it.
Which will appeal to a lot of people, right?
And so my other books they don't have that much in it, but they're still, when we do get to the sexy times, it's still that hot. The Galactic Pirate Brides, so book 1 is much less so, but simply because I put a roadblock between them so they couldn't, because it would literally kill her if they were to become intimate. And so they have to solve. So there's the whole, they come in kissing and like, oh, we can't, and you know.
Yes, that's good. It's cool. That's good. I am so looking forward to reading that book.
They can't actually do the deed until they have come up with a solution for that to happen.
It's cool.
Okay.
I kicked myself at that time. I'm like, what am I supposed to? I really put a damper on the sexy time. So
a lot of sexual tension.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Awesome. I want to go back right to the beginning, because that's what I do. But you mentioned that you put together a business plan when you very first realized that you needed to get serious, and I was just a bit curious about what you planned out, like what you included in that business plan, and maybe if it's still something you think is relevant or valid for newbie authors today.
Well, it helped me reset my brain in a very, very necessary way, because I had never done it. And so it brought up for me just a lot of ways of thinking about my writing that I had not done before. For instance, pre-planning my release schedule and knowing, and being forced to think about, hey, if I want to make sure I've got at least 3 books out a year, I need to write X number of words, a day, every day, or I need to make sure I blocked out this time.
Yeah.
And so I honestly think I didn't update my business plan this year, but I did for the last 4 years since I started writing, and so I probably should go back in and just revisit it. But it just really helped me see the future instead of letting things get lost in the wayside, because I hadn't considered the fact that I have to have a budget for ads, or I have to have, even something as small as my mission statement to help other authors achieve their goals and whatever. So right now I'm the current president for our RWA chapter here in Alaska. And so that was just part of my mission statement. Like, how can I do this to help other authors nurture their dreams as well? And just putting that down so that I knew that I could feel like I was ticking those boxes and achieving those goals.
Yeah.
Is a really good place to be, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, if you don't know what your goals are, how are you going to achieve them, right? So
Right.
writing it down. We're all writers, so I don't know why we wouldn't write it down as well, right? Yeah.
And at the top of the episode, you also mentioned SK Quinn or Susie Quinn, and I was, for those of us that were fortunate enough to be in the For Love or Money Facebook group at the time. Now, just a writer on that is no longer existing. And if you go to Amazon and look up SK Quinn, the For Love or Money book, it's like $555 for paperback because it's actually unpublished now. But Susan does have a new Facebook group and a new newsletter for authors. So we're going to put those links in the show notes, because she's somebody that I've always admired in the industry. And, I think there's a lot of people that would have been at around the same time as you read that, Tamsin, that were similarly kind of but that was similarly inspired to look at it from a business point of view, their writing, and just kind of, and what she was one of the first people to talk about the fact that you can do it for money and for love. Like it was kind of the meeting of the two worlds, not one or the other. So I admire her tremendously.
Yeah. I owe her my career. I really do. I just wouldn't have thought of that way previously. I mean, I changed genres and came up with a new pen name because I realized it doesn't have to be love or money. It can be both. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And also she's she's literally a rocket scientist, isn't she? So she's got that alignment. Yeah,
she is.
She probably goes and reads scientific papers too, I reckon.
Probably.
I'm bound to be.
Yeah. All right. So do you have any final piece of advice or anything that you'd like to say to readers about their career? How to... Writers. Sorry. What did I say?
Writers. Yeah. Gosh. Well, we've covered a lot that I think fits in really well. I might suggest don't worry about advertising until you've got at least 3 books in a series out. That's probably a big thing. I've got some author friends who are just starting. And it's so hard when you're excited and you've got to do I should throw Facebook ads out, and I should do this, and I should apply for a book club, and I should do this, and I should do that. And
you feel like you're pricking their bubble.
You only get to debut on BookBub once, right? Like they'll take you multiple times, but you're just to debut once. Yeah. So to me, I would wait till I had 3 books in a series at least, before even applying for a book club, to make sure that you've really maximized that very expensive deal. Make sure your read through is going to happen.
Yeah. Have you had any book clubs since that first one, or are they?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, because I did also toy with the whole wide versus KU thing. I'm currently wide. Yeah.
Okay. You are wide. Okay.
I am, even though many readers in my genre are KU readers, and I do get a little bit of complaint about that. But I just don't personally. I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket. I did have had a few little minor problems with Amazon that led me to believe, you know what, I really should not put all my eggs in one basket. I see how this could go very, very wrong. And so, that wide versus KU thing is, you need to make that decision yourself. But my readers a lot of them are in KU, but they won't follow me to wide and buy the books.
Are they, have you always been wide, or did you start out?
When I first published as
Is she gone?
Just
We lost her, or is she just
Tamsin Ley?
Yeah.
I went KU because that was where it was. Then I had a little bit of a upset with a couple of things where they didn't match the BookBub. I actually lost a BookBub deal that didn't run for Amazon because Amazon did not price match in time.
Oh no.
So yes, and so that really, because to go back to your original question, Trudy, was have I had more BookBubs? Yeah, I've had several BookBubs on multiple books since then. Yeah. But not until I went wide.
Okay.
Because they didn't want me in KU. Yeah. And then I did have, the one time that I did get it, and Amazon didn't match me. And I just lost all this money.
Yeah.
Made me realize, you know what? Yeah, I need to make sure I'm right on this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a hard decision, but it is
it is a big decision to make.
Yeah.
Very, very big decision to make. But I have author friends that are making bank on KU. So I'm like, hey, as long as you're on that wave and you're riding it and you're okay with it, just make sure you've got a cushion in case something goes wrong.
Yes.
Keep riding it. It's fine. But
yeah, exactly. Okay. Any other questions from the other spa girls? I think we've covered a lot.
No.
Yes, we have.
I feel like my brain is full to bursting. So thank you, Tamsin, for joining us all the way from Alaska. With your beautiful sci-fi scene in the background for anyone who's
puts us to shame.
Listening on audio, you should go look at the YouTube video. It's very cool. So where can you be found, Tamsin, if someone wants to look you up and find you on the interwebs? Yeah,
you can find me. Well, you can find me on my website, which is www.tamsinley.com, which is easy. And then you can also track me down on Facebook. But like I said, that's not my favorite place to be. The easiest place is to go through, to find my website and then sign up. You can sign up for my newsletter. And then, like I said, I am so delighted to have one-on-ones and email fans. So
cool. Okay.
Very good.
Very cool.
And where can we be found?
So you can find our show notes for today's episode and all other 250 something other episodes at spargirlspodcast.com.
Awesome. So thank you all for listening to us again another time with the Spa Girls, and thank you, Tamsin, for joining us.
Thank you, Tamsin.
And we will be here again next week. See you.
Bye.
Bye. Keep well. Bye.
Bye.